I'm making some zinc countertops for a restaurant. I've got two of the small ones over here that are glued and pressed, and I'm now ready to cut the corners, wrap the edges, and I have three larger ones over here. So this is the solid zinc that I'm using, and I just wanted to make a quick informational video just describing the materials that I'm using, and so I can address some of the common questions I get about this process. So I'm going to start with the substrate that I use. It's a material called Advantech, and this material is available at most building supply centers, but not all hardware home centers will stock this. And what makes it unique is that it has a wax additive that displaces the moisture in this material, so it acts as a vapor barrier and doesn't change dimensionally with the change in humidity. So it's designed to be capable of installing directly onto concrete, and then you can put your hardwood floor over top of that. So it's a pretty unique material, almost impervious to water, and so it makes a very good stable substrate for gluing metal, because if you glue metal onto regular plywood, it will fail, because the plywood is going to shrink just a little bit, but the metal doesn't shrink at all. So the adhesive will fail and you'll get buckling of the metal. You'll have a big puffy spot. And that's no good. So you have to use a substrate that's going to be as stable as possible. And the Advantech is the best material that I've worked with for that application. So for these countertops, I beefed up the edge to 1.5 inches by adding another strip that I glued and stapled around. And then I took it a step further and added a strip of plywood. And the purpose of that is to get a substrate here on the edge that I can nail into, because I'm applying these decorative tacks. But that's my job, is to, get that effect. So I need to worry about the nails coming out, so I added this plywood to just make that more secure, because the end grain of the Advantech is just like chipboard, and it doesn't grab a tack or a nail as well as solid wood or plywood. So, but I don't always do it that way. Usually the end grain of the Advantech is good enough, but in this case I just wanted to be secure with that. But you have the option of adding that if you want. So that's the substrate that I use. The Advantech is pretty straightforward to work with, but it is difficult to glue. You can't use regular wood glue, and you have to use something with polyurethane in it. This is the product that I recommend as an adhesive. It's the Loctite polyurethane formula, and it's maybe $5-6 a tube. You can also use the liquid polyurethane glue. This works just as well, but it is a little messy and more difficult to spread around evenly. So, but I do discourage using other types of typical construction adhesive for this, because some of them have very short open times, and some of them take a really, really long time to dry. The advantage of this type of adhesive with the polyurethane is that it will set up in 2 or 4 hours, and it will be bonded very strongly. So you don't want to have to clamp something for 3 days before you can continue working on it. So the most common question I get by far from my YouTube audience is, what thickness of metal do I need and where do I buy it? So I have an array of materials here. This is the copper that I use, and this material is called 16-ounce soft copper. And the soft is really the key term here, because if you go shopping for metals online, you're going to see a lot of choices for thickness, but most of those choices are going to be for hard copper, or copper that's been cold rolled, and that makes it very stiff and difficult to work with a hammer. You want something that you can form around the edge and you can pound on it. This material is soft copper, and you can form it just with your hands. It's very malleable, very easy to work with, and it usually comes in just one size, which is called 16 ounce, and that means that a square foot weighs 16 ounces. I don't know exactly what the thickness is, but that's the material that you need if you're going to work with copper. It's available at some home centers. I buy it in 100-pound rolls. The soft copper that I buy comes in rolls 24 inches wide, but it is available in other sizes. And if you can't find it at your local hardware store, you can try to locate a roofing supply company, because the soft copper is also a common roofing product. And so this is the zinc. And one of the confusing things about my previous build videos is that I'm actually just using this material, which is galvanized steel flashing. So this is steel that's coated with zinc, and it's bonded on very well so that, you know, the only way to remove it is to sand it off. But this material is solid zinc, and that's what I'm working with today to make these countertops. So you have two choices for zinc countertops. For decorative furniture use, I usually go with the galvanized. The steel has a little bit more spring in it. It is formable by hand, but you know, the solid zinc is almost just like copper. It's very heavy and dense and very easy to pound with a hammer, but very expensive. And I have to custom order this and pay for shipping. I got this material from Rotometals, and they also offer a variety of thicknesses and types of zinc. And this is what they call soft zinc, which is also very similar to soft copper. So these two materials are very similar, and they're just about the same thickness. And this is what I go with if I'm doing any type of kitchen countertop job or anything that has a commercial application where, you know, it's going to see daily use. I go with the solid zinc, and I don't put any finish on it. But just as a note, mail ordering heavy rolls of expensive metal can end up in a hassle, because if one end of it gets dropped, it can smash and pancake it, and that makes it very difficult to work with. So I've had bad luck shipping rolls of metal UPS or FedEx, and if you can find a home center or a building supply center that can order it directly from the distributor, and then in that case it gets shipped on a pallet, and it's much more likely to arrive in better condition. So the copper and the galvanized steel flashing I get at a local building supply company, and the solid zinc I order from Rotometals, which is an online distributor, and they have a lot of shipping solutions for shipping their products, which is why I prefer to order from them. The galvanized steel is nice because it comes in a variety of sizes, and you can buy this on Amazon. It's a company called Amerimax, that's the brand, and it comes in 10-inch, 20-inch, 24-inch, 30-inch, and 36. So it's nice to have a variety of widths to work with, but you know, this metal has limitations. Once it has the patina on, you can't redo the patina or refinish it. The zinc and copper, the solid zinc and copper, you can refinish an infinite number of times. It's very durable, but this only gets one shot. So I hope that's helpful. I'm recording the process building these, and I'll describe my clamping system in my next video. So I use my workbench as a clamp, and the weight of the building is pressing down on my sheets to, you know, make make it nice and flat. Okay, my zinc countertops are complete. I'll be doing another build video for this, but I'll do the sneak preview of the finished product. And I did the patina last night, and then today I took them outside and hosed them off to get any chemical residue off of them. And then I put these decorative tacks on the edges, and I've never done that before. This is a custom design job, and these countertops are going to be in a restaurant with an industrial type theme. So this is exactly what they wanted, or at least I hope it is. And the finish that's on here is just raw metal, and if I was going to do a decorative finish on furniture, I would clear coat it at this point with lacquer and then do my wax top coats. Or you can do all straight wax. It has a slightly different effect. But just to reinforce again, any type of sealer that you would put on this is not going to last. So the traditional finish on zinc counters is to just leave the raw metal and let it do its thing. It will change over time. I did my patina that you see here just to get it started, but the countertops are going to react with certain types of food, and the whitish residue that you see on here is the zinc oxide, and that comes and goes. So these countertops glued up really well. They're nice and flat. No puffy spots. And they should stay that way. But the patina that's on the solid zinc looks exactly the same as the galvanized flashing. But the zinc is obviously a superior product, and it can last by itself for a very long time. The galvanized flashing is steel and actually, is susceptible to rust. If you live near a salty climate, you would not want anything galvanized. But it is actually easier to work with. It takes quite a bit of effort to form this metal. It's quite thick. The galvanized flashing goes a lot quicker, and if it's the look that you're after and you're putting a sealer on it anyways, the galvanized steel is perfectly fine. And you shouldn't have to worry about it rusting unless it starts to wear, and in that case you should go with the solid zinc and not put any sealer on it. So these are the two options that I sell. You can do the decorative furniture zinc or the commercial grade traditional finish zinc, and this is a very durable product. And copper and zinc both have antibacterial properties which make them good for kitchen use. I will say that one of the real skills that's involved with here is just controlling the mess with the glue and not getting it everywhere. When I buff the counters to prepare it for the patina, the glue smears will stand out because they darken as you go over it with the Scrubby pad. But cleaning the countertops is one of the labor-intensive parts of the job, and being able to control the mess of the glue, by keeping it off your hands, keeping it off your tools, and keeping it off your workbench is kind of essential. And glue mess control is one of those skills that comes with experience, but it definitely pays off. So just as a warning to anybody getting into these countertops is to just be careful with the glue and try to develop a consciousness about keeping it off your clothes. And that polyurethane glue is quite unruly when you let big globs of it hang around, and it just gets on everything, and it can really make a mess. You know, if it gets on your hammer and you don't notice it, you know, you can spread it out quite a bit. So just as a side note, the traditional way of fabricating zinc countertops is to use solder on the corners and seams, and I'd never get into any soldering. I use a method of doing folds, and then I use the polyurethane glue, and then I clamp it if necessary. And that enables me to get a very nice, tight, clean corner joint, and I think it looks better than a solder joint. And so I never get into soldering. That's a whole skill in itself. And okay, so one of the other common questions I get about my juice product is the coverage that you get in 1 gallon, so that people know how much they need to order. And I never actually measured it, so I'm going to use this job as a way to measure how much coverage I get. So I did these 5 countertops here, and I started with a full gallon of juice, and this is how much I used. So it's more than a half gallon that's left. So I'm going to call that a third. And the square footage that I have here is about 40. So I have 40 square feet to a third of a gallon of juice. Maybe I'll just make it a half just to be generous. I'm generous with the liquid, as you notice in my video that I'm going to make later on. I have a lot of juice splashing around. It gets all over the floor. So I don't conserve it when I'm putting it on. But I would say 100 square feet per gallon would be a liberal estimate for the coverage that you would expect to get. So, oh, and one more thing. Some people ask me where I get these gray scrubby pads, and I get them and all of my sanding products from Klingspor. And I will be selling these on my eBay page if you just need a couple of these to do one project. I cut these in half, and I would say, one of these is enough to do one of these countertops. So I sell these in pairs, so you can buy 2 of these in a package and combine them with other eBay products if you need just a little bunch. But if you need a whole package, you can get them from Klingspor, and I get all of my sanding discs from them as well. They make very good products. But I use these gray scrubby pads for a lot of things around the shop. I also use them for distressed paint finishing. I can use these to remove paint effectively. And they're also very good for just general cleaning and buffing of finishes and that kind of thing. So I go through a lot of them in what I do, but if you're just doing 1 or 2 countertops, you can just buy them from me. But typically these are actually really expensive in hardware stores, and the quality isn't as good as this product. So that wraps this up. The geeses.